I think this is his most important season as a player, as a professional. Of course, you can always look back at your rookie days coming through, obviously getting the opportunity at Monaco. You make the big move to PSG, your first campaign, you're trying to impress. But when you go to Real Madrid, the stature of that club.
19 goals in his last 18 matches across all competitions.
Doing all right. He's not bad, you know.
Doing all right. 63 points now for Real Madrid, tying Barcelona on points. Obviously, Barcelona had not played yet this weekend. And Atleti falling behind now, 6 points back of Real Madrid. Let's start with the Merengues. Real Madrid come into this match obviously after the international break. And look, there's no time. There's no time to stop here. They're not at 100% because Rodrigo on the bench, Vinicius Jr. on the bench, everyone from that played in those South American qualifiers. None of them starting this match. But look, here is your starting 11 with Arda Güler getting into the team here, and Luka Modric as well. What were your thoughts on just having to come out for this game? Obviously, extremely important. A very interesting way, especially with the way the first half went, but they still were able to get it done.
Listen, the first half wasn't good enough from Real Madrid, and I think everybody can see that it wasn't up to the standards that Real Madrid set for themselves, especially against a team like Leganés, who just have a miserable record playing at the Bernabeu. They had 11 shots in the first half, 5 of them on target, and yet just couldn't have the advantage. And that was the biggest problem for me. A number of players stepped in and really didn't perform in the first 45 minutes, and I'm only certain that they got absolutely lit up at half-time. I can't imagine that Ancelotti's one to lose his temper too many times, but at half-time, they needed some sort of ignition. There wasn't that fire that was burning under their belly. Now you're going in behind against Leganés, and this is a LaLiga title race. You needed some sort of reaction. And my oh my did they give a reaction in that second period. Now remember, the statistics are absolutely out there. Real Madrid, they've been trailing at halftime in La Liga 5 games in the last 2 seasons, and they didn't lose any of them. And this was another one that they didn't lose. It's 4 victories from being behind at halftime. To me, it tells me a lot about the team spirit under Ancelotti. It tells me a lot about the substitutions you make in games, but also the fact that you need sometimes a little bit of luck and fortune to go in your favour. For me, the first 45 minutes, they didn't deserve that penalty kick. And they shouldn't have scored in the first 45 minutes. It was that bad for Real Madrid. Second half was exceptional.
It clearly took them a bit of time to kind of get going, and with not their normal rotation of players to start the match, it clearly did affect them. But the main man, once again, Kylian Mbappe. He is now fully have taken over this team. And he is continuing to show. Gets a brace here, practically wins the game for this team today.
Yep.
How big is he for this team, and how important is this season to him personally?
I think this is his most important season as a player, as a professional. Of course, you can always look back at your rookie days coming through, obviously getting the opportunity at Monaco. You make the big move to PSG, your first campaign, you're trying to impress. But when you go to Real Madrid, the stature of that club, the weight that is on your shoulders representing that wonderful football club, it takes time. And it's not necessarily easy, especially after the season that Real Madrid just had. The success, the trophies, now you've got to get all of those players to come back and welcome a massive name, one of the biggest names, if not the best player in world football over the last 4 or 5 years to your team. You've got to welcome him in and get him settled so that he can produce his best ability. He hasn't done that necessarily in the opening period of the season. It took him a moment. He had to try and figure out his chemistry alongside Vinicius Jr., who's taking the penalty kicks, would be a great example. That's where the problem I saw coming into the locker room. Is he going to be welcomed by this group? Because we've seen through generations previously that sometimes Real Madrid don't necessarily welcome big names into the locker room easily. But man, he is basically carrying this team this season. I have been controversial of late, talking about the fact that Real Madrid might struggle to win a trophy between now and the end of the season. And I still believe that's going to be the case. And I think in the first 45 minutes that was proven to be right. They needed some sort of fire to be lit for them to go and put that second half performance out there. But Kylian Mbappe is pushing this team to success. And once again, we're starting to see Jude Bellingham push the other teammates around him to try and get the results going, to try and get the performance up to scratch. But the performance from Kylian Mbappe, you read out the stat there, the goals that he scored, 33 across all competitions now, 22 in La Liga. He's chasing the Golden Boot, the Pichichi. He is outstanding. And this is probably his best season as a professional that I think I have ever seen because of the weight that's on his shoulders to do well there.
And that's what you said, the weight of Real Madrid. On most players, it's a lot to handle.
Yeah.
But he's not only handling it now, like you said, he is carrying this team across the line. Yeah. He doesn't want your prediction to come true. He wants to win a trophy with Real Madrid in his first season because he knows he's going to get criticized if he doesn't.
What a disaster it would be if Kylian Mbappe didn't win any of those major trophies, though. So that's why, in many ways, what I've seen from Kylian Mbappe, that he has recognised that maybe Real Madrid have been fatigued this season. After what they achieved last season, I don't blame them from being a tired team. It's very difficult mentally and physically to be able to produce quality performance. We're seeing that from Vinicius Jr. We're seeing his performance lacking with goals, for sure. But I do think that Kylian Mbappe sees players in training, sees players in the locker room, understands where they are fatigue-wise, and he recognises that maybe he's going to have to do a little bit extra if he's going to get his hands on a trophy, a major trophy this season. So I agree with you. I think he's carrying this team, and I think he's got a long way to go to try and get that hand on a trophy, on a major trophy this season.
You did also mention, as we look at the table here, we mentioned just a second ago that they are level on points, but still one game in hand for Barcelona at the top of the table. You mentioned Jude Bellingham and how he's also trying to, rally the team around Mbappe, around himself.
Yep.
And he gets his goal again today, and it really is showing to be these two stars really pushing this team forward. My question to you is simple. Is Jude the most complete midfielder in the world?
I think he's very close now. And I think after the season that we witnessed last season, I mean, the statistics simply, they answer for themselves. 35 goals for Real Madrid since he arrived last season. He's only played 82 games. And 12 goals this season across all competitions tells you that it's not as good this season as it was last season. He has looked a little fatigued, especially after the Euros. That's not easy to be able to compete, have the season and success that he had last season, go to the Euros, try to have success with England, only to fail at the final stage, and then all of a sudden come back and being asked to perform and do it all again. That's what Real Madrid does to you as a player. It is demanding of excellence. And that is not easy for every player to handle. But this kid, the age, the maturity for such a young player to be able to put out performances like he is putting out, he is absolutely the most complete midfielder I think I have seen, not only in this generation, but also if you go back previous generations. There are goal-scoring midfielders that I can recognise, obviously, who are world-class players. Your Zinedine Zidanes of this world. Yes, your Steven Gerrards and your Frank Lampards, who are goal-scoring midfielders. Jude Bellingham's been doing this since he was 17 years old. And to go to Real Madrid after the pressure that was on him at Borussia Dortmund and narrowly missing out on winning a Bundesliga title, then having success, putting his hands on the Champions League trophy, to continue that over to this season and also drag every player with him. Kylian's carrying this team, no doubt. But I think the influence from Jude Bellingham, with his goals, with his assist, with his machoism, with the way that he handles himself off the field, how he has this charisma on the field, I think he's influencing even Kylian Mbappe to be a better version of themselves. So to answer your question, he's the best midfielder in the world right now, and he's not too far ahead of Pedri, I think, from Barcelona. But I think he's just outstanding to watch and getting better and better.
Yeah, it really does seem like he's really just fitting into his role, knows when to push forward, knows when to go back. Mbappe, Bellingham, Ancelotti, they know how to handle the pressure without a doubt.
Yeah.
Team that's not handling the pressure so well right now is Atletico Madrid. And they have been struggling. These are their last 5 results, and in LaLiga, it has not been good. And as you can see, it's affecting them now in the table as they are 6 points back of Real Madrid. They dropped points yet again today. A difficult situation, but all the teams were in the same spot because a lot of players coming back from international break, and once again, they're not able to finish a game when they were up 1-0, make a silly mistake late, and they drop points again. Is this season, if they can't win anything, they obviously are still in a battle for Copa del Rey, the Liga is getting a lot more difficult. Would this season be a failure if they can't win anything?
I think it's been a successful season anyway. What was the expectation? Was it to win a La Liga title? Probably not. Real Madrid and Barcelona ahead of them. In my personal opinion, they spent a lot of money on the transfer market, and especially in Julian Alvarez coming through the door. They were probably chasing that La Liga title. But I do believe that the money spent on them adds more pressure than actually what the results and performances were telling us. They were found out against Real Madrid. They didn't have enough to get past them in the Champions League, which to me was a massive disappointment for them. And the fact that they have now, failed to win in the last 3 games in the La Liga race is so disappointing. That hasn't happened since 2022. So it tells you that there's a lot of fatigue and maybe a little bit of concentration taken away from the players out there. I don't think that every single player that you just saw, even on that list of players who came through the door, has played to the best of their abilities. They've been good, yes, and they should be good because of the money spent and the team that I think Simeone has built. At times, they're a lot more pleasing on the eye than they've ever been through the time that Simeone's been in charge of this club. They're better to watch, but I still think something's missing, Stefano.
Would you say that maybe, yes, they're a lot more fun to watch. It's a better brand of football that we're seeing, but maybe not having the same success? Is this team's best version playing the old school Simeone ball, physical, parking the bus, and playing on the counterattack? Is that better suited, even with all the new signings, to Atletico Madrid?
No, I do believe that this is the way forward for them, and this is the way they should have success. I wouldn't put it past them winning a La Liga title next season, because if you keep this team together, this group together, maybe you lose an Antoine Griezmann who is getting up there. By the way, broke a record to be, obviously the foreign player with most appearances in La Liga history. He just overtook Lionel Messi, 521 appearances. But I think Simeone's onto something incredibly special. You know where I think they've lacked this season? Is goal scoring. And you saw the money that was spent there. Where's that money being spent? It's on goal scorers. They've played 29 games in La Liga this season, and they've scored 47 goals. That's not enough to win a La Liga title. Yes, they're in the race because they're not losing many games and they don't concede many goals. They have the best defense in La Liga, but that's not enough. Defense doesn't necessarily just win you championships when you've got two horses that are in the race that are called Barcelona and Real Madrid. Goals will win you that La Liga title. I think the mentality needs to turn to Copa del Rey and getting that job done against Barcelona. And I actually do think they have a chance of beating Barcelona in Copa del Rey.
Barcelona, obviously, at the top of the table and still in the Champions League. How much criticism, though, for the recent failures of Atletico Madrid and maybe now being knocked out of the title race? How much criticism does Diego Simeone deserve?
I think he deserves a little bit of criticism, but not as much as I would be criticising his strikers for not scoring those goals and the opportunities they have created in games to win games. Away from home, they've been poor. They've not won enough games away from home in La Liga. Again, that is their fourth consecutive draw against Espanyol head-to-head through history. Win your games away from home, do the business at home, which we know they're great at, and you've got an opportunity of putting your hand on that La Liga title. But I think that they deserve criticism across the board, yes. It's still been a good campaign, though. Yeah. They've been in the race. They've got to try and get themselves. They got knocked out by their rival in the Champions League. 4-4 away from home against Barcelona and Copa del Rey. It's been a good race for them. But what's this business all about? This business is about getting your hands on trophies. And if they don't get a trophy this year, there will be fingers pointed, that's for sure.
I mean, they bring in Julian Alvarez. They both have 11 goals. It's clearly Sorloth 11 goals as well this season. It's not enough. It's not enough for a team that's competing on all levels, you think?
Well, I said to you away from home, right? They have won 6 from 14 games away from home in the Liga. That's not good enough. And the finger will be pointed at Simeone, but for me, the finger should be pointed at his players. Not doing the business on the road, not scoring enough goals. Don't deserve to win a title.